Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here with my course Loadout from the 3-day urban rifle class down at Thunder Ranch. Thunder Ranch is located down in Lakeview, Oregon, and who knows what you're gonna get weather-wise. As a consequence, if you're gonna go down there, try and bring stuff for any weather, which I'm glad I did because we had all the different kinds of weather down there. As far as just starting with what I was wearing, kind of bottom up, had these right here. These are by Salomon. They are Gore-Tex. They're not incredibly warm, but definitely warmer than something that's completely not insulated, or honestly something without Gore-Tex. Reviewed them before. They did a good job for me. There was no point where my feet were really cold, in part because I kept the rest of my body pretty warm too. And so moving up from there, these right here, these are by 0.6. These are over the calf soft socks, really soft, and they did great for me. Definitely kept me warm. Pretty much changed socks and underwear every day. Shirts, maybe, I don't remember. As far as shirts, I think some days had like just a t-shirt, and then for 1 or 2 days, I think I wore this right here. This is by Verusteleka. It's from their Finnish Brutality. And this is a merino wool, really nice, cozy base layer. And then, buddy, you need to move back. For pants, I wore pretty much the same pants all 3 days in a row, which are these right here. These are, I believe they're combat pant by Otte Gear. And man, long story short, I honestly don't really care for them. They're durable. They're also, I've worn them in warmer months, and they're really hot, especially with the knee pads in them, which are right here. They also have this material, which I think plays in part with, or combined rather, with their knee pads. They make them really hot, which it was actually cold there most of the time, so that wasn't an issue. But the way their knee pads work, they're not super flexible, and because you have this ridge along here, I don't know if it's the way they're cut or what, but basically down here at the bottom, they go in from the outside. There's Velcro closure. This eventually just wears along your shin, and it ends up getting really uncomfortable. And as far as pocket layout, did some reloads, I think that first day, because I just wore these. I didn't wear any kit, and the pockets for me, they're not super convenient in the layout as far as trying to draw from them. Like, I'd rather have the pockets kind of up higher, more in the front, like honestly like the Prometheus like Raider cut pants. But I wore them, they worked, just again not my favorite. And after that first day with these knee pads, I just took them out and did not wear them again, because again, they were uncomfortable. They just wear, like this bottom ridge just wears all day on your shin right there. I will say they're nice kneeling on gravel, picking up brass at the end of the day, but that was that. As far as warming layers, eventually I got to the point where I was actually wearing a t-shirt because it was warm, but there was also crazy weather up until that final day where it actually got kind of warm for a minute. So I ended up wearing this right here, reviewed this before. This is the Alpha Ore jacket by Beyond. It does not stop wind, which it was also windy at times, so I layered over it, but it is really nice and warm, which is awesome. And on those colder days, especially mornings and stuff, I wore this right here. This is the Sitka Kelvin light down jacket, and while it's not waterproof, it did a good job even when it did get kind of wet from kind of like a wet snow we had, and then of course eventually hail and all of the weather. But this ended up doing a good job for me pretty much through that whole course. Never ended up cold on my, like the top of my body. It just did well. And then, man, people overlook bottom layers. And so I've reviewed these before. These are great. These are the Durable L7, I think. Basically the level 7 from Beyond. And they're really nice because the legs zip all the way down, quilted insulation, step straight into them, zip the legs down. If you need to take them off, zip them up, take them off. pretty sure I wore these every single day, at least at the beginning of the day when it was cooler. And then as it warmed up, given the opportunity, I would take them off, and yeah, did awesome. They, however, are definitely not flame retardant, or yeah, heat is their enemy. I was shooting suppressed, we'll get to my gun and stuff later, but at one point we were doing something dynamic, moving around, and the can definitely touched just for a second, but long enough to basically melt straight through that. So yeah, I have some patch material, I'll throw it over, not a big deal, but it's definitely going to be on my suppressor forever. And yeah, that was kind of it as far as layers go. As far as personal protective equipment, these right here, wearing prescription lenses. These are my Smith Director Elite with ballistic lenses from Zeiss in there. Did a great job. Man, it was cold for most of the days, and when it wasn't cold, still nice to have gloves to protect your hands. So I wore these, which I'm actually wearing right now. These are probably my favorite of the SKD Tactical pig gloves. These are the Presscheck Assault gloves. Lots of good features on there to include this section, which is basically this kind of like soft suede, which when it's cold and your nose is running, you can basically wipe your nose on there. And yeah, pleased with these gloves. Not as important for me necessarily with shooting rifle as far as the dexterity, even though they have a lot, mainly with pistol, but these did a good job for me, and yeah, pleased with them. As far as other gear that, man, I actually really appreciate, this right here. This bucket is by Dillon Rifle Company and originally made for basically shooting helos, to where you can strap it down and then all around it you have these cells. So your magazines can go in here like such, and then they have basically, man, how many? I guess like 6 rifle mags around the sides. Couple pistol mag pouches, like narrower, don't use those, and then kind of a general pouch right here. Really, really handy. So we're shooting, because urban rifle like the range you're using, use this right here. I actually have some left over, and this is frangible by Centerfire with an S, S-I-N-T-E-R. And honestly, I don't really care for shooting frangible, but it's what you have to shoot for some of the classes there. So shooting this, more on that in a minute. But I basically had a case of it. And so I'd go through and load magazines. And I think probably, I don't know, probably almost a dozen, 10 or 12 magazines. Mostly either these SureFeed magazines right here, USGI, or I also had some Magpul M3 mags. I would go through basically the night before, load all my magazines, and then have them staged around this bucket like that. And throughout the day, use them as I would use them, right here in the top, throw them in there, grab fresh magazines while everyone else is back jamming mags. So I didn't have to continually do that. And then usually during lunch, I would load all my magazines again. That would get me through the rest of the day. So really handy. And then as I needed them, I would come, take them out, put them in my gear, throw my empty ones in there. Really, really handy. I really appreciate having this thing in shooting courses. I ended up using, as far as tack gear, reload, stuff like that, I ended up using this setup right here, which is actually really cool. I like this. I believe I've reviewed this before. On the front here, kind of what all of this is built off of is the Spiritus Mark V chassis. And so there's a pouch back here where you can put Velcro inserts, and then on front there's actually this pouch too, which you can remove depending on what you need. Up front here I have basically some different med gear, combat gauze, other med stuff, med supplies inside there. And then by Lunar Concepts, they have these wings, different size wings. So this one right here is wider than this one. And the way I have it set up here is I have a tourniquet pouch on this little wing right here. This right here being a soft T wide. And even though on my person, I still am carrying right now a RMT, depending on the layers and honestly those pants made it to where it's not super accessible. So I wanted to have another tourniquet on my person, or if I was wearing those overpants, again, still have access to that. Then over on this side, on that wider wing right there, I have my radio right here with this antenna. Antenna is pretty cool. I kind of played around over the course of those couple days with how I want to route the antenna. And then this piece right here, also this harness piece, I actually really like this, also by Lunar Concepts. Does a great job of, one, dispersing weight, and with how big this back panel is, just staying in place during movement. So something else nice about this is you can route things through it. So by way of example, this antenna right here, really cool. It's by Iron Spear Outfitters, and I have it routed up through this harness. And then for a while I kept it and it was kind of just sticking up. Occasionally my sling would grab on it and I'm like, I should probably figure out where else I can route it. So I routed it all the way back. So it went onto my back. And then this, first time to try this thing out, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, one more thing I guess on this harness. Funny story. Last time I used this, I was probably shooting my Scar 20. And so you can put any inserts you want in here. The inserts I actually have in here is for two, essentially 308 pattern magazines. Does it matter? Not really, other than I was now carrying 2 magazines rather than the 3. But pretty much all the times we went up to the line, 3 was fine. So I'd have 1 in my pocket, get up to the line, put that one in, and then I had my 2 reloads for when I needed them. Pretty easy to get to there. Going back to Ear Pro. So this is pretty cool. I just recently got it, and this gave me an opportunity to put in time with it. And so it is a kind of on-ear Ear Pro, I guess we'll say, in that it is by Otto Engineering, and it's pretty cool, in part because it's a turnkey solution for integrated communications. And triad of success: shoot, move, communicate. Not necessarily in that order. Communication is usually overlooked. And so one thing I will say is it is not amplified hearing protection. This one is pretty cool though, in that it uses the Surefire EP3, 4, I forget which ones, but they're basically sized and they do a great job fitting in your ear. They give you some situational, obviously they're in-ear Ear Pro, but you still have a little bit of situational awareness. I wasn't running into times where like I couldn't hear range commands or things like that, or when we brought it in to go over some sort of skill or drill, still did a good job like being able to hear, kind of that passive, but definitely protecting my hearing at the same time. And being totally integrated, have a mic for comms, and then it comes down, and right here in line is this push to talk, which is really cool. Granted, during that course, while they have and are going to have even more communications based stuff in their classes, there wasn't in this one, but it was set up for it. So it comes down, and this one specifically has a Kenwood 2-pin for this Baofeng UV5R, I guess it is. And so right here, this inline push to talk, which is pretty cool. Kind of played with it a little bit. I think moving forward, when I actually use it for comms, I will set this up and kind of like loosely mount it, whether tape, zip ties, something like that, directly to this antenna, just so that it's always in the exact same spot. But yeah, pretty cool little setup, and I really appreciate just a turnkey solution for integrated comms. So yeah, pretty good all in all. As far as my gun I was shooting, this giant gun right here. This right here is my 5.56 Honey Badger by Q. It's awesome. It is a ton of fun. Well, I guess starting at the front, working our way back. Right here, this is the Southpaw. It is their can, dedicated 5.56 can. Really small, lightweight, made of steel. Haven't finished my review on it. Did a good job. And how quiet is it? Well, it's a 9.69 inch barrel, so it's about that quiet for 5.56. Definitely not super quiet, but actually sounds pretty good on this gun. Working our way back right here, front and rear. These are the folding iron sights by Scalarworks. More on that in a second. Right here, this is a Tiger Claw by Die Free Company. Over here, kind of on this top side right there. Pretty cool. I actually like this one. This is a QD socket, one by Sig Sauer. Really low profile, puts it kind of at an offset angle. Working our way back again, went over those magazines. Right here, this is the Kung Fu Grip by Die Free Company, and then their brace by Q. Oh yeah, and then this right here is, I forget which version of it, but this is a V-Tac Sling, Viking Tactics, and it's connected up front with a QD, and then back here is a U-loop from Blue Force Gear. Why did I choose this? Couple reasons. One, I need to finish content on it so I can finish my review, and it's a ton of fun to shoot. I do really enjoy it. I especially enjoy it over the course of shooting 2.5 days in that it is a light gun. This thing slick without a cannon stuff is like 4.5 pounds, which is crazy. And it also shoots really nice. Usually when you get a short gun, again, 9.69 inch barrel, usually when you get a short gun, it's pretty violent. Like the recoil impulse, this is really smooth. And I need to finish content on these irons, so I ended up actually shooting these irons, because how else are you gonna review them if you don't spend time with them? Something that did come up, one, I started shooting irons, like cut my teeth in M16A2 back in the Marine Corps, and I enjoy shooting irons. With a sight radius, these irons are basically made to go on any gun. And so this is honestly a pretty short sight radius. And so back here, you can switch, fingers are getting numb. You can switch between these two different apertures. And so basically the 0 to 200 sight, like think A2 sights, the larger aperture, I found it was too, generally, it was too big, because I would throw it up and it's a really big circle. Like you can honestly see these front wings that are protecting that front sight post in it. And it was hard to kind of refine my point of aim. It was fine if we were doing kind of up drills up close on cardboard where we didn't have to, like, say, shoot a headshot like in a credit card box or something like that. But if we did, there was too much sight, or too much, you could see too much. So I would flip it, bam, over to the more precision dot, and honestly shot that for most of it, and that actually did a really good job for me. Other things, oh yeah, so that frangible, not my favorite to shoot. One, it's kind of underpowered. Two, I think it's like 45 or 47 grain or something like that. This is actually a 1 5 inch twist, so made for heavier bullets. It did fine. When we printed on paper at 100, definitely not the best accuracy, but it was plenty good for what we were doing. I did run into a couple issues, probably about 2 a day, I would say. And what would happen is, again, that frangible, it's not crimped because it's basically just kind of a compressed copper projectile essentially, and like powdered copper, so they can't crimp it. And so a couple times, probably about twice a day, again, over the course of about almost 1,000 rounds, it would come, it would grab the round, and then it would get stuck right there, because basically the projectile would get punched back into the casing and it would just wedge itself on the feed ramp. Weird, I don't know, frangible does weird stuff. Keep in mind that I shot this at the Moons Out competition, 0 issues the entire time. Just for whatever reason with that frangible, again, not being crimped, ran into that. Probably about twice a day I would have one of those malfunctions. Good rep, get to clear that thing out. But yeah, that did happen. And right there is my level 7 pants from Beyond, which will probably never come off the suppressor. Coming away from it, is there anything I would have changed with respect to gear, clothing, stuff like that? Not really. I think everything did good. Thunder Ranch down in Lakeview, man. No idea what you're going to get weather-wise. This was, I guess, the end of March, and sure enough, high winds. Actually, speaking of high winds, my camera blew over the one I'm filming on right now. Blasted down straight onto the corner of the lens on the concrete, blew out, broke the sacrificial lens I had on there, and actually kind of broke in the aluminum housing of the lens. Won't ever be able to put another one on, but obviously, as you're seeing this, it's still working, so count my lucky stars. But yeah, crazy weather, all of the weather to include nice sunshine. So we got basically all of it down there. All of the clothing I brought complemented all of the different weather. Definitely important to have options anytime you go down there. All this other gear, everything did good. I enjoyed it. No real shortcomings. One thing, just as I spend more time with this comms / ear pro headset from Otto Engineering, there were some times where I think mainly it was because I had hoods kind of bunched up behind me, but they would push it and kind of push my ear pro a little bit, not to where they would come out, but to where I felt like I wanted to come up and kind of push them in a little bit, make sure they were totally seated. Again, I think it had to do with my hood pushing up on this back piece on the back of the ear pro. So we'll see as I kind of explore that more. Probably could have brought a 3-mag insert rather than this 2-mag insert, but non-issue really. And yeah, a couple of those malfunctions because of the frangible, but this thing shot and I really enjoyed shooting it, just in part because it's a fun gun. So yeah, pretty much everything worked as I wanted it to. But if you're interested in checking out any of this stuff, there'll be a link down below. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Everybody said we gotta take a chance and tell her what the hell we